The whole topic of narcissism is incredibly confusing, and confusion is one of the key weapons that narcissists use to make it difficult for us to navigate. So if we can think clearly, we stand a higher chance of being able to break free from them, to get our life back together. But if they are successful in confusing us, we are significantly more vulnerable to their games, to their techniques. And that is why I think unhelpful ideas make healing significantly more difficult or nearly impossible, and the helpful ideas make it easy to go significantly faster. We could wonder, why is it that some people peddle these unhelpful ideas? Is it because they don't realize that they're unhelpful? In other words, they're not quite as competent as we'd expect them to be? Or is it because the longer people embrace unhelpful ideas, the more content they consume and the more products they consume? The answer is not self-evident, but let's see what we can do to debunk these ideas. And let's get started with this. Here we go. So, the first unhelpful idea is that we need to diagnose if someone is or is not a narcissist. The notion of diagnosing is that we want to understand, who is the person in front of us? Do they fit the label of being a narcissist? And that tends to be a yes or no question. It's possible, of course. Here we go. Let's see if that's a bit easier to read. It's possible, of course, to go for the yes/no question. There we go. Or no. The issue is that if we have a yes/no question, we spend a lot of time debating, is it yes or is it no? And if we're not 100% clear that it's a yes, we end up wondering, maybe it's a no. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the person is not a narcissist. Maybe the person is not unreasonable. Maybe the problem is me. Whenever we use the word maybe, that's usually a sign, actually not whenever we use it, it usually is a sign that we're trying to think in simplistic terms. Maybe is interesting to open possibilities, but for clear thinking, it's less interesting than if we're using probabilities and statistics. Now, we could ask, well, what is the definition of a narcissist? Is there one specific definition? And if somebody matches the definition at 80%, does that mean that they are 80% narcissistic? Or does it mean that they are below the threshold, so they don't qualify as being a narcissist? Well, I think it's interesting, instead of trying to look for labels and definitions, instead to look for clusters of behavior. Why? Because a narcissist will be acting a certain way. If we understand the way the narcissist acts, then we observe certain patterns, certain behaviors. Whereas we can debate for a long time if the person is a narcissist or isn't a narcissist, debating behaviors is less confusing because we see the behavior. The person started a fight just before we arrived for dinner. Well, that is factual. Does it mean the person is a narcissist or not? No, that's sort of irrelevant. But the person started a fight just before we arrived for dinner. So we don't need to debate it. We can get clarity on this. And this helps. Instead of thinking, I need to answer if the person is a narcissist or not, we can simply observe and label behaviors, label patterns. The person talks to me this way. The person criticizes me this way. The person does X this way. And that works for me or does not work for me. By the way, let me know if the audio is working. I've got a new setup. The audio should be working. And of course, when you join, do say hi. Let me know where you're from, and come in with questions that you might have. So the number one, instead of trying to diagnose, which is a waste of time, and you can keep on watching content, you'll never be 100% clear. Audio fine? Thank you, Peter. Good to see you. You'll never be 100% clear if the person is a narcissist or not. Instead, observe behaviors. You can be very clear regarding the behaviors. When were you fighting? Why were you fighting? Who started the fight? And so on and so forth. Number 2, in terms of unhelpful ideas, unhelpful concepts, it is to understand why. When we want to understand why, there usually is the question, if only I could understand why, I might be able to do something. If only there was an explanation in the childhood, if only there was something. And this is akin to having a hopium addiction. If only I can get this, then something will happen. Okay, maybe. This would assume, number 1, it is possible to understand why. If it isn't possible, what the hell are we doing? And number 2, it assumes that it changes something. Now, let's imagine you walk down the street, someone starts headbutting you. Do you need to understand why? Or do you just remove the damage? If your nose is broken because they were headbutting you, do you need to understand why? What does it change if they were doing that? Sorry, I think I'm getting some kind of call. Don't mind that. So, does that change something? If it doesn't change something, then, well, what are we doing? Instead of trying to understand why, let's replace it by something that is significantly more helpful. Oops, here we go. Which is, ask the question, does it work for you? Does it work for you? The person headbutting you as you walk down the street, does it work for you? If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, good. Enjoy it. Go and see a nose doctor afterwards. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Why they are doing it is irrelevant. It doesn't work for you. In this case, what I like us to do is think you have the narcissist and you have you. When we try to understand why, we are trying to get into the head of the narcissist. And we can do that, but it doesn't really change anything because of the behavior. What really matters is the behavior that they have towards us. If the behavior doesn't work, that's that. So the real question is, how are we responding? If we're not responding well, that's all we need to know. Don't waste time trying to understand something when you're not even certain if you can understand it. And even when people say, I probably was headbutting you because a teacher was mean to me when I was 12. Well, that might be an explanation, but it's more likely that they enjoy headbutting people and the teacher being mean is just an excuse because other people had teachers who were really mean and did worse things than being mean, and those people don't go around headbutting other people. But people who enjoy headbutting others, they'll always be finding reasons to headbutt. And number 3, let me just see. Here we go. Just bear with me 1 second. Oopsie. Okay, here we go. Number 3, in terms of dumb, unhelpful, counterproductive ideas, is how to make them change. Now you might go, well, you say this is dumb, but you've got videos about negotiating with narcissists. And that's a fair point. I was thinking about it. The real question is, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to change the motivation they have? Are we trying to make them suddenly become nice, kind, loving, and so on? Or are we trying to change the behavior? If we try to change the motivation, well, I'd replace it with a question. Why? Why would they change? See, that's difficult to read. Bad handwriting. Why would they change? Why would they change? What in the current situation isn't working out perfectly for them? Once we can understand that the current situation that isn't working for us works out perfectly for them, it becomes a bit easier to say, well, if it works out for them, I need to make this situation stop working out for them so they have an incentive to act differently. And if what we're doing is we're pleading with them and we're trying to make them see our point of view and show more empathy and think that maybe if only I can explain they'll change, well, I'd ask you, what's the likelihood of that? What makes you believe that they actually want to change? So think, why would they change? If you've got no reason for them to change, they wouldn't change. These are very basic creatures. Most of us tend to believe in reciprocity and empathy and so some unwritten social codes that depend culture by culture, region by region. Like in the UK, what seems like a long time ago, people would queue up for the bus and everyone else from everywhere around the world would think, you're crazy. You're queuing up for the bus. Why don't you just rush? And the British people wouldn't do it because that's the way they behaved. It's part of the culture. And you know, that's it was self-evident for British people. The behaviors have changed significantly. So if we don't understand why someone would change, don't assume they would. Instead, view it as being they don't want to change. So how do I approach this strategically to make it likely for them to change? If there's a hostage situation, you don't explain to the hostage that the hostage taker that the hostages are nice people and they got families and so on. That's not going to work. The person doesn't really care about it. You have to find a way to enter the logic, implode the logic from inside, and basically figure out why they would have an incentive to change. And once you do that, you've got a bit of leverage. But don't waste time thinking, maybe if you explain things differently, approach this like a negotiation. Make it really cold. This is one of the tricks of, or one of the empathy traps. If only these people had more empathy, it's not going to work. It's like the people saying, well, if we can raise awareness, then we can explain to people that they should act differently. Yeah, try doing that with a psychopath. It's not going to work. But when these people sell courses or sell videos or give videos that incentivize others to be fueled by hopium, well, that's pretty cynical. It's pretty disgusting. So that's one of the dumb ideas. We're moving rather quickly. Always let me know if you've got comments, but we can go through this rather quickly. It's not too difficult to debunk. And also, let me know if you disagree. Let me know in the comments also if you agree, disagree. Let me know in the comments about any other dumb ideas that you've come across, or ideas where you're not sure if they're dumb or not, and then we can see what we can do about it. Number 4, which I come across pretty often, is if only I had done, said, not done X. This absolutely. Social clothes throughout the window because toxic pair weren't getting the attention they thought they deserved. That's an interesting situation. It's great. Raising awareness about narcissism. What more can we ask? We've had a lot of high-profile narcissists in the news in 2022. I might do a video about that. So, number 4. If only I had done or said or not done X, things would be different. If only I had offered this person a better birthday present, we wouldn't have had a fight. If only I hadn't overcooked the toast, we wouldn't have had a fight. That's equivalent to saying, if only I hadn't forgotten to put the top on the toothpaste, we wouldn't have gotten a divorce. That's ridiculous. It makes no sense. Of course we believe it because we're likely to guilt trip ourselves. It's very common to think, I could have done things better. And yeah, we probably could have done things better. However, the fact that we didn't do things perfectly is not the reason why things didn't work out. Things didn't work out because someone didn't want them to work out. Either it's immaturity, which can happen in many relationships. So it might be immaturity, but it might also be someone who doesn't want things to work out. Why don't they? They're resentful. They enjoy destruction. They want to play victim. They want someone to blame. There are many, many, many reasons why people don't want things to work out. Instead, it's much easier to go, it wasn't something you did. The outcome was predetermined. Let me jump into this a little bit more, because it's something people struggle with quite often. You have a narcissist who has got a mask on of being an angel. But this person actually is an angry demon. And you are a regular person. The narcissist seduces you with a tailor-made mask. You fall in love with this tailor-made mask. How is this possibly sustainable? How is it possible to have a relationship when the person you love doesn't exist? This is the person you love. They don't exist. And the more you love a person, the more you try to figure out who they are, who the person behind is. They can't keep up appearances because it's not them. There's no correlation. It's not just a lower resolution version of them. There's this persona. It's a completely fictional character that they're pretending to be. If you imagine that you try to seduce someone by making them believe that you're Batman or Batwoman, and they fall in love with Batman or Batwoman, they're never going to love you. And once you point out that you're not really Batman or Batwoman, and you're not even Bruce Wayne or whatever the name of Batwoman was, but you're just a person with some kind of costume, they're not going to love you. Never. It's not going to happen. So, if the setup of the relationship is based on a lie, is based on a mask, is based on a fake persona, there's no scenario where it ends well. It's impossible. They can't keep up the game long enough. It can't end well. It ends with abuse. It ends with breakup. It ends with them being angry. If anything, it ends with them despising you for being stupid enough for not realizing that it's a mask, and also being angry because they're not loved, and also realizing they can't be loved because they scammed you, they conned you, and they can't turn around and say, actually, I'm not the person you thought I was. I'm a complete hypocrite, a person with no personality. All I know how to do is pretend to be someone else. They can't do that. I mean, if they did, what would you do? You might, run away, go away, understandably. Or you might go, I don't know who you are, you're freaking me out, understandably. There's no outcome where it could end well. So this is one of the reasons why, when you go back into this, diagnosing, it's not helpful. You've got the clusters of behavior. The clusters of behavior, they tell you exactly who the person is. The mask is the person saying, I'm X, Y, Z. The behaviors, it tells you who the person is. And then, understanding why. You're trying to understand why the mask doesn't match. But you don't need to understand why. You just need to see how the person behaves. That's it. Does it work for you? No. Okay, move on. How do you make them change? Okay, good question. How do you make someone change from being who they really are to who they never were. I mean, how's that going to work? Assuming that the person actually wanted to. They don't want to, first of all, and they can't become a person they're not. And just as I can't become Batman. I might like to, but do I really want to? Do I want to put in the work? Do I want to go to the gym that often? Do I want to... But by the time I'm going to be building up billions, assuming that was easy to do, and I'd be too old. I'd be Alfred. So that's not particularly helpful. That's not going to work. And then the thing of going, if only I had said or I had done whatever, is going, well, if only I had said something or done something, then the person would be the mask. It can't be the mask. It's not going to work. They're the devil. They're not the mask, the angel mask. And that's not because of something we said or did or didn't say or didn't do, or buying the wrong present, or not being romantic enough, all of those things. It's not the case. If anything, if we're not romantic enough or we're buying the wrong present, well, an adult would have a conversation. Go, listen, it might seem stupid, but actually for me, presents are rather important. Or just say, well, for me as a basis of relationship, it's important to receive presents. And yes, I like material things, and I expect you to spend a lot of money on me. Okay, fair enough. If that's part of the deal, okay, fair enough. But the person didn't stop being an angel because of something we did. It's just the mask that fell off. They showed who they truly were. It's really, really quite simple. And, it's easy to go through these thoughts of maybe if only I'd done something or said something different. It's not helpful. It's not accurate. And accuracy is really important. Now, there's one last point I'd like to mention that I think would be that I think is quite helpful. I see it come up quite often, which is, in terms of silly concepts, which is assuming someone else has the answers, which is a tricky one. You see a lot of that on YouTube. People who, they've been through it all, and they're going to share with you exactly what happened, and they will give you the answers. No, that's not the case. We can show behaviors, we can show patterns. There's only one person who's got the answers, and that's you. You got the answers. Deep down inside. People can show keys, not give you the answers. And you don't need someone else giving you the answers, because that plays into the drama triangle. The drama triangle states that you have three people. You have the person playing the victim. That's not very neat. There we go. Person playing the victim. You have the perpetrator. And then you have the savior. So I'm guessing in this case, you'd be the victim, the narcissist would be the perpetrator, and then there's a risk that the victim goes looking for a savior. Who's the savior? The issue here is that this provides balance. We need a perpetrator to be a victim, and we need a savior to focus on external help so we don't take responsibility. That's why when people encourage the victim mindset, encourage the points I mentioned before, understanding, trying to find trying to put labels on, they put themselves above others. That's why I put the savior higher up, above others. But a big problem that we have when it comes to narcissists is that usually you have you, and above you there is the narcissist. There we go. The narcissist who is playing God. And yeah, hi Clary, good to see you. Exactly. I take personal responsibility, taking time, asking more questions. Absolutely. The narcissist is playing God. We delegate to them the fact that they know things or they understand things or they're right, or we shouldn't question them. They require us to have this mindset. Now, what can happen is that instead of keeping the narcissist playing God, we sort of downgrade the narcissist playing God. There we go. We downgrade them to being on our level, but then we go, looking for a savior. And the savior, again, there's a vertical relationship. Good therapists don't place themselves above the patient. They're on equal footing. Placing oneself above someone else is demeaning, condescending, and it keeps the person in the drama triangle. One of the questions we'd be asking, oh yeah, that's something else. Well, the questions we were asking, here we go. Understanding why. Let's assume that you can never know why. Let's assume you'll never get the answer. Let's assume that. What are you going to do? Going to stay stuck? Or are you going to move on? Let's assume that there is no outside solution. Let's assume that there is no savior. Let's assume that the savior is actually manipulating you. The right way, in my humble opinion, is to empower the so-called victim, to stop being a victim, to take responsibility, to not ask, am I right, is the person a narcissist, which then requires that we go towards a savior who will give us the answers, but instead ask the question, is it working for me? You know the answer, is it working for you? You know the behaviors you saw, are they working for you? And you know what? If you're being unreasonable, it doesn't matter. You're allowed to be unreasonable. That's not a problem. And sorry, just 1 second. Okay. If you're being unreasonable, it doesn't matter. You're allowed to be unreasonable, and they're allowed to dislike it. When we spoke with Yana, the video in Kazakhstan, when I interviewed Yana, we had this conversation. It's all about freedom and responsibility. You're allowed to do what you want. They're allowed to like it or dislike it. It's fine. Don't have to be liked by everyone. But if we can find people who like us the way we are, people who are, are not wearing a mask and don't require us to wear a mask, and people who don't force us to act a certain way, but who are willing to have some kind of flexibility with us, well, maybe that's not bad. Maybe it's better than what most people get. So yeah, that was the last point. Don't go around thinking someone else has got answers. I've got frameworks I share with you. The frameworks are more theoretic tools, but the specifics, you work it out. And something I suggest you do, by the way, note down the tools, the questions that are helpful, the frameworks that are helpful. You look at them and compare them to your notes, to reality, to what you experienced. If you can do that, you'll get all the answers you need. It's not really that complicated. Yeah, there we go. There are a few other things I'd like to work on, but I don't think I'll do it now. I think it's too much. I think this is already, it's about 30 minutes. It's pretty good. I think I'll be doing a workshop quite soon with some ideas that I think are really important, but it's going to require some work, some writing, so I'll probably do it in a slightly different format. Let me know. Do you have any questions? I can take a few questions before I sign off. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Otherwise, if you have other questions, you can put them in the comments, and then I'll take them up on another live stream. It took me a little while to get started with this one because of the format. So with the being able to write over the screen, I'm quite happy with this. I think it worked out okay. Yes, Fatima, please let me know about the question. And yeah, I think this works quite nicely. Normally, it takes me a while to do this with other editing, but this way I can do it on the fly. Let me know if it works for you, if the quality is okay. I think the sound is alright. I think the video is okay. It's a bit of always an experiment. And as you might have seen, I've been working more with shorts recently. It takes me little time to upload those. It's fun to work with a bit differently. So taking the shorts from existing videos, and I've got a few ideas of other videos I want to do, but it takes time to do this. And thank you, of course, everyone, for your support. Thank you for watching the videos. I see sometimes that people do viewing sessions where they watch multiple videos I did, and YouTube loves that. So it's a really great way to support what I do. Doing those, liking, of course, commenting is very helpful. Oh, good. Thank you, Peter. Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Clary. I like doing it with drawing. I think it makes it much easier to visualize. With other live streams I did, I wasn't able to do it, and it was a bit frustrating. Okay, ordered by a narc to challenge authorities in order to resolve a situation. Ordered? Okay, I don't know how they can control anything that you're doing. There might be certain dynamics. One way to respond to that is usually when they ask for something, there's something unpleasant for us. So a good way to respond is to, okay, put you in further difficulty. Is just go, if I did that, it would put me in further difficulty. I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable. And usually that line of going, I'm sorry, or apologizing is really good. I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable. You can also follow up with, I'm guessing if I can't do that, you have no other option and you're fully 100% dependent on me and there's nothing you can do. Which means that you make them come across as being completely, here we go, let's do it like this, completely powerless. So you'd have, here we go, independent, dependent, and it's saying, if I can't do anything, you're 100% dependent on me, so you're basically a victim, you're powerless, and I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable with that. They will reject the fact that they're dependent on you because they want to come across as independent, so you just frame it as being, well, on the one hand, you frame this as your comfort, 0%, 100%. You frame it as being, I'm not comfortable, because I have all of these disadvantages if I do it. I'm not comfortable, and I'm really sorry. I understand that you have 0% of agency. There's nothing you can do. If I can't help you, you're completely screwed, and you're powerless. And you know, you add this on, and go, that's why I'm really sorry, and I don't feel comfortable. As soon as they reject, oh yeah, I'm your only hope. I understand. I'm your only hope. As soon as they reject that, then you can ask, well, what are your alternatives? And then when they can't talk about alternatives, just play it down. That would never work. How is that supposed to work? You can't do that. The more you challenge them, the more likely they are to push back, and hopefully prove you wrong. But always do it softly. I'm really sorry. And sort of, you can play the condescending, I know there's nothing you can do, and that's why I'm really sorry, but I'm not comfortable. As soon as you say you're not comfortable, it's really hard for someone to push you to, it's not impossible, but to push you what you're doing, because you're basically saying, I'm sorry, this doesn't work for me. Sorry, doesn't work for me. And then you can also ask the question, how am I supposed to do that? And every time they come up with an explanation, come up with reasons why that's not going to work. I'm sorry, I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry, I don't know how to do it. Shut down, withdraw. Doesn't mean they're not going to run after you, but that's my suggestion. Anyway, there we go. Thank you for the question. Thank you everyone for joining in. Let me know in the comments more questions, and if you like this format, then I might be doing it on a more regular basis. There we go. So thank you everyone, and here we go. And I hope to see you soon. All the best. Bye.